Aló, sí, bienvenidos otra vez. Bienvenidos, damas y caballeros, aquí al Brown Perspective. Aquí están con Eduardo y con Romero, el hombre sincero. ¿Cómo estamos, Romero?
Bien, bien. Thanks a lot.
And people will notice the radio voice. And I think part of it is because we're talking about music today. This week was the 2019 Billboard Latin Music Awards. And Romero and I have at least three themes that we want to discuss. Obviously, it's an exciting time for Latin music, and these shows showcase a lot of the music that's popular, that's connecting us as a Latino collective, and also defining our culture. But it's definitely interesting to see how the music is evolving, how they are helping us mix different elements of our being. So there's definitely more of a connection between the music that's happening in Latin America, including Mexico, the Caribbean, South America, but also the Latino experience here. But within those themes, there's definitely three that we want to highlight. One, just being exploring the música regional mexicana versus other Latin music. Um, and that's for me is a topic of interest because growing up in the East Coast, you're watching Univision, and all of a sudden you see an ad for Los Tigres del Norte, or the banda Limon, and I always thought, like, who listens to this music, um, and obviously we'll get more into the demographics, but obviously there's a significant Mexican American and Mexican population who listens to that music. And then the other theme, exploring reggaeton as a unifying musical genre that sort of exemplifies, connects the Latino urban experience in the United States and Latin America, and across the world, really. And then lastly, just continue to have a dialogue around women artists. And actually, I know before this show, there was a little bit of controversy around who was the true reina del reggaeton, Evie Queen or Carol G. But more importantly, understanding how difficult it is for women to make it in the music industry, to make it in the reggaeton industry, to talk about some of the observations about the performances that we saw or that were done during the recent show. So Romero, I know that's a lot of information to cover. What are some of your initial thoughts about where this conversation is headed?
Yeah, maybe you can give us some tips on how to stay up to date with all of this hip culture because some of these artists I don't even know them. I know of Evie Queen, but that's going way back. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, when you mentioned earlier, there's always every time I watch these awards shows, there does seem to be a bit of they're trying to force the issue. It seems when they try to cram all these different, vastly different genres together into one
Hmm.
awards show. You go from something like reggaeton, which is pop music, dancing, and it's mainstream right now, and then you switch over to banda, which is a
Hmm.
completely different on the other spectrum. And each group has its own fan base. I'm not saying that they don't, but the way that they try to cram it into an awards show, it always felt to me like they were doing it intentional. Like it doesn't fit, but they're trying to because maybe that's just the politics of it, or they're trying to give exposure to some artists, and it helps to put them with other artists that have more exposure. So yeah, that part is always interesting. But yeah, I'm really interested in talking about the topics that you discuss. Yeah, so why don't we go ahead with the first one that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so I think the first one is the música regional mexicana versus the other music. And to your point, like I mentioned earlier, growing up in the East Coast, there was a sense, and again, there weren't that many Mexicans. Obviously, I knew of Mexican music, but the Mexican music I grew up with was Vicente Fernandez, more of the ranchera, traditional Mexican music. So the norteñas, the banda, I guess now Sinaloense. Now that obviously that I live in the West Coast, I'm a lot more familiar about those genres. But even before, when I was in DC, a place where there's a lot of people from a lot of Latinos from other parts of the country who come and bring their music and musical taste um, to the mix, right? So for me, and to your point, yes, like it seems part of me feels like, yeah, that doesn't feel like it goes. Like, why are you gonna start with like Romeo Santos and this bachata and Wisin y Yandel, and then you have this performance by a Mexican group. So part of it's kind of like it doesn't jive, but the other part is part of me feels like that's cool. Like it shows the diversity of our or the musical taste within the Latino community. And I guess for me, the best comparison is sort of the divide that happens in sort of the mainstream American music between those who like, pop and hip hop and country music. It feels kind of like that way.
Pop, yeah, but they usually have their own awards show. Is there an awards? I don't think there's an awards show in the U.S. that tries to mix all those three together or all those different genres together. So you'll get. Uh, maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't
Yeah,
seen one.
no, I think the Grammys. I think is the Grammys is the one that I think tries to be as inclusive as possible. And I think that applies both for the American Grammys and the Latin Grammys, um, because I think there need to be a little more inclusive of all of the genres because they're the Academy of Music
So
per se.
if you're watching the American Grammy Awards, you're gonna see something like this, not necessarily underground, but country music, and then right after the country song by some artist, you're gonna see what's the latest? These guys, Two Chains or Future or those artists. Is that
Or
how it
Drake and
goes?
stuff. Yeah, and they do. I think for the most part, and that's one of the nice things about these shows. Like sometimes they do mix genres. So I know in the American Grammys, they usually I know, and then there's also artists that come along that help bridge the divide. But focusing it back in Latin American music, I know a few years ago you had Jorge Celedon performing with a mariachi band, right? So that song, "Qué bonita es esta vida," which talks about enjoying life and being able to drink aguardiente y tequila, right? So I think sometimes there's those opportunities where these shows bring together those artists to perform for the first time, and I think part of it is they try to do those uh, exclusive or once in unexpected collaboration as a way to draw viewers into the show.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But something like vallenato, it lends itself very well to being then adopted and interpreted through a with a mariachi
Hmm.
because the themes are very similar. What Jorge Celedón is talking about, and maybe that's another topic here that's going on where it's what the message of the music is. That's why maybe for me, I don't watch the Grammys. I know of them, but I don't really watch them. So you're right.
Hmm.
I they do mix in different genres, but it doesn't feel like the way that it does when I watch it in Spanish. And maybe that's just because I have a more of a personal connection to the music in Spanish.
Yeah,
But when you talk about reggaeton, or even if I don't know if this year they had any of the trap reggaeton that is popular right
of
now,
course, Bad Bunny, bad,
yeah, all of
Bad
that. So
Bunny.
you have something like that, and which is glamorizing the certain type of lifestyle, and then you switch over to something like banda or something from Mexico that is talking about a completely different thing, and they might be talking about the corridos or the, I don't even know if they feature narco corridos, but it always felt like it was this huge leap that they were doing from one to the other, and a lot of the times the people that enjoys one type of it absolutely hates the other type.
Yeah,
From
and let's talk more about that because I feel that music is an expression of who we are and how we grow up. So I think that's the challenge, right? Because I think, and you cannot blame a Mexican for not liking reggaeton or merengue, and you cannot blame a Dominican, Puerto Rican, or other for not liking regional or banda. It's just that it's not part of their experience growing up.
yeah, they don't have the connection to it, and then when they see it, they're like, "What?" Yeah, like exactly your expression, what you said. What is this music? Who's listening to it?
Yeah.
Because if you're from California, then obviously you're familiar with it, even though you may not necessarily that may not be the primary music that you're listening to. You're exposed to it because you go out to a restaurant and they're blasting this music. So one way or another, you're exposed to it. So you have some sense of what it is that they are recognizing these people for on the show. But yeah, that always felt, and even before reggaeton came along, they were trying to do this, but before the major categories were still bachata, there were salsa and merengue and
Tropical.
tropical. Yeah, they called it tropical, and then they still had regional Mexican music. Which, by the way, regional Mexican music, it's huge. It's I think it's in terms of sales and in terms of people that consumers that consume that music, it's pretty big, especially like on the Mexico south, the southwest of the U.S. and
Yeah.
then throughout other countries of Latin America. So that always has been a pretty big category that they like to include, maybe just because of the like I said, because it's popular, but also because it is a big part of their audience, the audience of these channels that broadcast it. A big part of it is still a predominantly, I would say, I don't want to say Mexican American, but like Mexican American and the Central American and then even South American. So now with reggaeton, the people in terms of viewers, right? Let's talk about the viewers, the people that are watching Univision or Telemundo. The people that are creating this music are actually from a, like you would call them, a minority of the Latino population when you take everybody into account. But now, in terms of their market share, they're capturing a huge market share, and so
Hmm.
you have this huge group like reggaeton. And I wouldn't be surprised if, because I didn't see the whole show, I just saw clips of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if reggaeton took most of the awards.
Yeah. No, and the other interesting thing is also we need to keep in mind that the Billboard Latin Awards, the Grammys, all of that, most of that music is very mainstream, right? So in some ways, is to your point, is what the music that is being created by the small number of folks, but it's also like the music that's being put out there, that's being commercialized, that's being pushed by folks who want to define what's good music and what's not, right? And it's interesting because um, reggaeton. I know one of the sort of the a couple of the awards. Yeah, one of the awards went to the collaboration between the Mexican rock group Rake, Osuna, and Wisin and Yandel, right? So that's a song that's it's very it's as a mix of rock and reggaeton. So I think part of it is also seeing those kind of unexpected genres coming together. I know Mana has collaborated with Nicky Jam, but I think even within the regional Mexican music, I noticed that there's a lot of young new artists, and you probably can help me differentiate between. I know there's sort of the banda corrido. Well, I mean, some of the corrido artists that I saw being honored, they're so young, right? And they're not only young, but they're all about the lifestyle of partying, have a good time. So it's almost like the trap version, the Latin trap version of corridos or sinaloenses. Again, I don't I'm still trying to get my Mexican music genres straight.
No, yeah, you have it right. That type of music has been, it's always been big here in LA, in California, but in the last few years you've started to see more and more the young kids that get into it. And part of it is because the music itself, it has attitude. And
Hmm.
so kids are always attracted to music with a message or with an attitude, like with hip hop. And even though this music, the corridos have been here for a while, but now this style of music that's coming out of Sinaloa, that it's not new, but it does have a slightly different sound to it. It's got attitude, it's in your face, and then they're still glamorizing the narco culture, but now they're also they have started to glamorize their lifestyles too. So
Yeah.
it kind of went from the people being traffickers themselves, and the songs talking about, like from the first person, I did this, I was a trafficker and I ended up in jail, and telling a story. And then it evolved to, I'm not the trafficker, I'm like the trafficker's bodyguard. I'm the guy that is right there if he needs me to, and I'm the guy that's going to give my life for that guy. And then it's kind
Hmm.
of going from that to, I'm just a guy with a ton of money. And the underlying message is still that they're involved in the drug business, but they may not necessarily have the song talking about that. They may just say that they're living a good lifestyle. And
Hmm.
that's attracting, that attracts a lot of young kids. If you go to YouTube, you do see a ton of young kids from here, from the US and from Mexico, trying to play that type of music. And so we're here in California, so every single mariscos place that we go to, they'll have live music. And if you
Yeah.
went to any of those places about 15 years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, what you would see the four old guys with the huge bajo and the accordion and the guitar. And those are the guys that would be playing songs for you, and you could pay 5-10 bucks for a song, and they would play all the classics. But now if you start going to some of the places here in LA, it's a whole bunch of young people.
Hmm.
And there's one here by my house, and this is the first time that I went to this place. It was this young kid that was like 15 or 16 years old, and he was killing it, because the way that this Sinaloense style of playing is that they play a lot with the guitar, and then so they're trying to give it a lot more range, which I really like, because I'm a big fan of the guitar. But this kid was just killing it with the guitar, the way that he was playing. But then in between songs, he would break out and play like Led Zeppelin or some
Hmm.
other hardcore rock song. So that tells you, like, okay, this kid grew up listening to rock, and that's why he got into music. That was his passion. But all of a sudden, he made the switch, and now he's singing these narco corridos. And it could be for two reasons. It could be because he really likes the music, again, because it has attitude and it attracts that certain type of person that's trying to build an identity, or
Hmm.
he just found an opportunity where he's making money. Because these guys that are the mariscos, these guys charge $20 per song, and even though
Yeah.
it's four guys, if they're playing for a few hours, that's a good cut for a 16-year-old kid that that's still in school. So that was really interesting to observe that.
Yeah, and I think I like the fact that you did point out that a lot of what's behind music is about the attitude, and I feel that it's interesting to see how that same attitude spreads from sort of the current hip hop culture. And I know some people feel that now it's definitely more about the bling, about the party lifestyle versus the message. And it's interesting to see that it's almost like a generational thing. There's a representation of where our collective cultures are, and obviously, but now we're in a place where all that music is coming together. So we're probably in a place where, because of the internet, because of everything that's transpired, I feel that we're you know music. A lot of the music originally evolved very regionally based, but now you have genres mixing with genres, and you have a region like here in California, like Los Angeles, where you can listen to reggaeton, banda regional, salsa, merengue, all those musics, and it's crazy to think. And not only that, I mean that's the Latin music, but here in LA, in particular, because the Mexican community, Latino community, other communities have been here for so long. There's so many other genres that people love here, like you said, like the rock and like rock, like classic rock, and so many other musics. And so it's just interesting to see how people just can relate and embrace all that music. And then there's people who grew up with that music who either focus on a genre, and for the reasons that you just said, maybe because it sells better, because it's more is what people are asking when they go to restaurants, but they also maybe combine elements of that music to create something that's new, or that brings a lot of different elements together.
Another angle that we're not discussing or that I want to bring up is that there's a lot of Latinos that have no association at all with this music,
Hmm.
and they don't even watch Univision. And let alone they wouldn't even watch it for this. Again, the only reason this wasn't on Telemundo, sorry. The,
Telemundo, yeah.
the only reason why I knew of this show again is because my babysitter, she watches Telemundo the whole time, and that's
Hmm.
her channel. And part of it is because she doesn't know how to use the TV, so she puts it into one channel and she's like, "Don't change it. That's my channel." And if it ever gets it, if we go to Netflix or YouTube, what she'll do is I found this out a few days ago. She'll turn off the TV and she'll turn it back on because that resets it to the TV and it puts it on the channel that it was at
There you go.
before. So when I turn on the TV, it's on channel 52 and it's playing whatever's on at the time. And I happen to come across the Latin Billboard Latin Music Awards, but I never watched. I stepped away from Univision and Telemundo a long time ago, and not intentionally. I still consume that type of. I'm still part of the culture, but I consume most of it online now. I either read stuff or I go to YouTube. I'm not watching live TV. And there's a whole group of people here, and especially in California, that have no association to this music. You were talking about earlier about the different types of musical styles that mix here. You could be in a neighborhood here in Santa Ana or Downey or LA, and you could sometimes, if the neighbors blasting the music, what you're gonna hear something like the Smiths or Morrissey, like 80s type of rock, because for some
Hmm.
reason Morrissey people just love that guy here. And then if the person is someone that just they might just that might be their music, but then you might also hear if somebody grew up with that music but their parents grew up with the Mexican music. What you'll find, if somebody will put on their playlist on their podcast, and I'm sorry, their playlist on their iPod, and then it'll jump from Morrissey, and then the next song will be like a Pedro Infante, and
Hmm.
then maybe what you'll hear is that they'll stop the Pedro Infante song, and then they'll rewind it, and then they'll go back to like a rock song because they want to stay in that mode. They don't want to switch, but it kind of gives you an insight into what people have in their iPods and the type of music that they're listening to. And I'm sure yours is like that too, because I've gone to some of your parties where you've DJ'd, and I know you create your lists ahead of time. But if you just put your iPod into random, like it would take us a cold across the entire spectrum of music, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And I think it's funny because um, when I first moved to LA, and when I was asked to play at a party, I was intimidated just because a lot of the music that you referencing is because I grew up in Colombia, and because I think part of it, I think my mom might have listened to some of that music, but I didn't grow up with it. So a lot of music in the 80s and the rock and roll, and also a lot of was it like freestyle and all these music that was very popular here in the 70s and 80s that a lot of the people that were there grew up with. I didn't know, right? So I think a lot of it is like, okay, not only I don't know the music, let me find out what the best songs are, and then how the hell do I sequence it so that I keep everybody happy. And I think this is part of the reason why Telemundo and others tried so hard to, because when you're a DJ, when you play or even at your own party, you always have requests, right? And here in LA, you have people who want to listen. I want to listen to salsa. I want to listen to reggaeton. I want to listen to like Los Tucanes del Norte. I want to listen to like Pedro Infante. So it's almost like you need to structure your playlist so that you're giving everybody a little bit of what they want. And then obviously there's genres that cut across those audiences like cumbia, right? So once you play cumbia and everybody starts dancing, okay, so how can I keep everybody dancing? And maybe you play something that's popular, that's popular with the kids, but that the older crowd likes too. So it's always kind of that hard of trying to keep people dancing, engaged, and happy, and also stopping them from coming to you to request
Yeah,
songs. And then when they do, then you'll, yes, okay, I'll play that when it makes sense, because you cannot go from reggaeton and straight to like um I don't know, to regional right away. Obviously,
You gotta
you
ease into
can.
it. Yeah,
You,
there's that in cumbia is a good transition music because you can transition from reggaeton to cumbia, which you're still dancing, and then you can transition to like a banda, and because it's still the type of banda that where you can dance to it. But that's if in yeah, that's the unique challenge if you're a DJ here in LA. But if you're a good DJ, you pull that off effortlessly. The people
oh
love
yeah,
it. The
and
people love
there's
the
a lot of DJs
transitions.
here who do that.
If you're my brother, who is I don't want to call him out on the show, but he has a very unique style of DJing. Uh, my nickname for him is DJ Halftime. DJ Halftime because he plays the music that he likes first of all,
Hmm.
and then he plays nothing but the Mexican music that is the deprimido, depressive, melancholic that gets you really sad, and then he gets drunk and he doesn't make it like past. Well, actually, no. So sorry, I said that wrong. So he starts off okay, but he still favors his type of music.
Hmm.
But by the time you get to the halfway show, he's already gotten drunk with the music that at the halfway mark, he just says screw it and he starts playing what he likes.
Yeah, what he
and
wants to
yeah,
listen to, what he's in the mood.
so we had a party at our house once, and this is related to what you were saying because he was playing nothing but corridos. He was already really drunk and just playing his playlist. And then some girls went up to him because we had a pretty diverse crowd. It was a going away party for one of my cousins, and these two or three girls went up to him and said, "Hey, can you play some rock en español?" And then he said, "I don't listen to hip hop." But obviously, he
That's
was
funny.
he was making
Uh,
that's a joke from South Park, by the way. So it's not like my brother thought of this on his own,
oh,
but he was messing with them. But at the same time, he told them this, and it's really funny because I was there, and like people that were there started cracking up. But then he didn't play their music; he kept playing. So yeah.
that's
Anyway,
too funny.
yeah. If you're a good DJ, then you're solid here in LA because there's gonna be work for you because not everybody can pull that off.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about some of the performances. So there's some artists. There's this artist named Becky G. There's another artist named Anita. I have no clue who they are. Maybe you can fill me in a little bit on them.
Yes, and actually that gets us into the other theme that we wanted to discuss, which was sort of the the gender dynamics and gender expression, well, particularly for women within reggaeton music. So Becky G, Mexican American, I believe, she is up and comer. I mean, she's been uh, singing for a while. She's had collaborations with a number of folks. So I know she's done things from it's more like pop, but I know she's done things music that is even I'm trying to remember what the genre is, kind of like that electro cumbia.
Mm.
There it is.
I've
So
I've
definitely
seen
more
her.
information.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw her, but I've seen her. I haven't heard her music, or at least I wouldn't be able to identify that it's her if I've listened to any of her music.
Yeah, and so so she has good music, interesting music, but I guess with the performance, and then Anita, she's Brazilian, and she is. I mean, some of her earlier stuff is definitely, and in Brazil, you think Latin people are sexy and provocative. Then you go to Brazil, and they take sexiness and provocation to the next level, right? But she's had some good songs, some good collaborations with Latin artists like J Balvin. Her and J Balvin have collaborated a lot, and I think she's trying to do the rare thing that having a Brazilian artist who appeals and sort of crosses over into the Latin market. But anyways, both are very talented, very beautiful. The only problem was that the song that they performed at the Billboard, I think it was a new song, and I can't remember. I think it was like chocolate. And it was basically about candy, about fruits. So it was very sensual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the
Suggestive.
problem is not that it's sensual. I think my problem is that like it's so hard for women to make it in the to make it in the music business, and part of it is I feel that usually when you in any genre, the women that usually make it are really pretty, either really beautiful faces or very attractive. So so it almost feels like the only reason why they're they're making is because they're beautiful and all those things.
Is this
They're
the one?
talented, huh?
Is this the song? The one
Yeah,
that I
that's
pulled
the
up?
song. Yeah, so Banana. So again, and and it's a little trappy
But this is where the
and
culture has gone too. This is where the Nicki Minaj. This has all of the marks of a Nicki Minaj type of video.
yeah, correct. Yeah, so it's all about, and part of it is, yeah, you go girl, like you are um
Empowerment and
empowered, you're all about, you're flaunting what your mama gave you, all those things. But then, but my point is that then you get into this point of, are they doing that because is that what sells and they know that that's what people want, or are they doing that because that's what they feel like they want to do, right? And I think like Becky G recently did a really good song with, she also collaborated with Nati Natasha and Sin Pijama, right? So that's a song that is I think part of it is, yes, it's sexy, but it also kind of has this message of, so it's different. It's sexy, but I feel like they're more the music is great, the message is great, and it just seems like more. So this is the official one. So this is like all
yeah.
the
So
innuendos, which is like,
this is Anita, and the one on the left is Becky G.
yeah. So
And by
that
the way,
Becky G's, that's
switched
Becky G right now.
the other one because it was really low quality. And
Yeah.
then in order to watch this one, people had to sit through the ad.
So,
So
so put if you want to put the music on to see.
just to listen to it.
Yeah.
Lick like a pro. Blow pop, bring pop, blow pop. Así te lo hago yo. I'm a boss, you
So you notice a little bit
Yeah,
of the Brazilian music.
yeah. It takes like 2-3 seconds to understand the type of music that it is, and the type that you would hear at the club, or I'm sure they're playing this on the radio stations too. But I don't
So
listen to
my
the.
Yeah, so it's definitely like dancing. But my point is like, part of it is like, are you it's focused on just who they are, how good they look, but it's not like it's is it a song that we're gonna remember, 5-10 years from now?
Right, because yeah, it's just uh, what's the so is it empowerment or is it objectification? Right.
Exactly.
So that's probably going to depend on your point of view, what perspective you want to take. Yeah, you can, depending on who you are, you can probably rationalize it either way.
Yeah, and
That's
so then part of it, and I think not to put it all on the women, because a lot of it's also the industry, and a lot of it's also the audience, right? Why they're listening, what are people willing to listen to, support? Because then you have another artist like Snow the Product, who is a Latina, probably one of the best female MCs that I've heard in recent, who does it both in English and Spanish. She did a collaboration with Lin Manuel Miranda, the immigrants that they get the job done.
mhm.
That song. So she has that song, but I think she's from the Bay. She has all these other music that is it's great. So the flow is great, the theme is great. So she's a great musician, a great artist. But unfortunately, she's not getting a lot of play. Part of it because maybe her message is a little bit too radical, too in your face, too. So I think part of it is also acknowledging that there's just this uh, double standard when it comes to female artists, and it's also a lot of the things that the industry tries to impose for the sake of what sells and what can we get behind, and which artists we cannot support or.
Yeah, that whole experience must be must be insane what an artist, a female artist like that, goes through in the industry, because they may start out singing and they may have their own way of dressing, their own not personality, but their own persona that they've built, and
Mm-hmm.
then they make it past a few barriers, and then they start getting some recognition. But then these major producers pick them up, and then they start telling them, "Hey, look, if you're gonna make it to the next level, then you have to do this, this, and that. We have to like get you looking this way, and so forth." And then the ones that push back probably are the ones that then don't make it as far. But then the ones that have to go along with this and essentially objectify themselves, or again, right, I don't want to use that term because it could be empowerment if you want to look at it that way, but essentially, and the more attractive they are, the more that they're going to have this appeal. So that must be crazy for females, because the female body is highly, as a product, it's a highly marketable product if you have a beautiful, or what society considers beautiful, woman, or a beautiful body or a beautiful face. A man does not go through this as obviously there's some grooming that they do on men and so forth, but not to the degree that it goes to with women. And so yeah, I'm sure there's always that tug of war, like so these girls here, this Becky G and Anita G, I don't know if they were already like this before they got into the industry, or if maybe they had a little bit of it, like they did a little bit of I'm going to use my performing abilities to try to sell myself, versus I'm going to focus on the content of my lyrics and my message. Maybe they had a good mix of that, but then they get into the industry and then they have to essentially go to the extreme where all they're selling is their body, they're selling their image, and then the song becomes just some 3-minute song that somebody put together that is completely meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Maybe we can get Becky G. Maybe we can see if we can interview her. She can tell us all about it.
yeah, and I think and I did see going back to that song that she did with Nati Natasha Sin Pijama. I think that they do. I remember seeing that there was a video, a conversation that the two of them did, and I think the other piece um, is that, I mean, compared to 10 years ago, there's definitely seemed to be a lot more, and this is speaking within the reggaeton genre. There seems to be more women performers. So you have Becky G, you have Carol G, you have Anita. Now you have you Rosalia, who's from Spain, and that kind of is a new thing, right? So now it's you have somebody who sings reggaeton or urban music who's from Spain, um, but in other many artists in Colombia, there's a few more too. But I guess part of it is like there's definitely a lot more of them, and that there seems to be a lot more collaboration. Um, but they still not, I think, as visible as supported as their male counterparts.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, that's the trend right now. I think that's what sells, and they're trying to get all these young, attractive females and males to then sing this music, because at this point the message in the music is so watered down anyway. You just need a good beat and a pretty face in front of it that knows how to perform. And yeah, that's just the way our culture is. Have you seen, I'm not on Instagram, but I am on Facebook. Have you gone on Facebook or Instagram where there's this whole thing right now where women in yoga pants will post pictures of themselves doing yoga poses, and then the girls
Mm,
with the slim bodies with the nice round butt, they get millions of followers. I don't know if it's Instagram or Twitter, but and it's just a picture, right?
hmm
Nothing more beyond that. They don't even show their face. It's just that. And then there's people out there that will follow them and they become popular. Just so now imagine if that's why it's so effective with the music, because you essentially have that, but you also have someone that's performing and singing a song that at least you can like listen to or dance to.
hmm
Why don't we recap just briefly the some of these winners are? You can tell me a little bit about them because I don't know most of them. I know Osuna. I know Osuna
hmm
because when we were in Honduras. One of the guys from Honduras that we were with, he kept playing this whole album. He played it over and over and over. I got so tired of it. I had to tell him to just put some. If I asked him if he had anything else, and the reason why I did is not because look, his music is okay. I'll listen to it, but when you listen to the same CD over and over, especially if you're driving, you at some point you want to listen to something else. And we even
Kind of,
went
he
to
was
one.
fun to, he was like your brother.
He was a cousin. No, no, not
No, but
not
in
not.
terms of playing the music that he wanted to hear.
Oh yeah, yeah. The guy in Honduras. No, he wasn't related to me, but he was a cousin of somebody that I know. And but yeah, well, Osuna was in Honduras that weekend, so we actually went to his concert.
But
And
Odisea was a great album for sure, and I think that was the one that he was probably playing for you.
I know it was bootleg because it didn't have a cover. That's what I remember. So he won Artist of the Year. Good for him. And then there's the new Artist of the Year. So this is a different category.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
those are
a new revelation,
relative.
right? And this is
So
Anuel. Sorry, this is Anuel AA. I have no idea who that is.
Doble A. So yeah, so he's sort of trap music, Latino trap, and yeah, I mean he has an interesting story. I think he was an artist. I don't have all the details, but he actually went to jail because of some of the problems that he had. But then when he got out of jail, he became really popular, and he not only won Artist of the Year this time around, but I believe he won another award recently. And then the controversy recently was that he's actually going out with Carol G, who
Mm-hmm.
is my girl from Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
But he got into hot water the other week. What because they're going out and obviously they're in love, and it's funny because their relationship was secret for a long time until they announced it, and they actually came up with a song called El Secreto when they sort of talk about it, and then they've done other collaborations. But in any case, he got into hot water because he was trying to claim that, Carol G was the queen of reggaeton, and that and that and that that Evie Queen couldn't be the queen because she hadn't put anything good, an album in a while, and obviously
Yeah, so they
that
started a
was very
little bit of
controversial
beef.
because
Yeah.
Evie Queen, going back to the point of back in the day, there weren't that many. I mean, Evie Queen was probably the sole reggaetonera who battled with Daddy Yankee, Don Omar, and all of those folks back in the day. So she is definitely the queen. So then Carol G had to step in and say, "Hey, I know that what my boyfriend meant to say was that he loves me, but I have nothing but respect for
She,
Evie
so
Queen,
she had
for
to
Becky
check him.
G, and everybody in the genre."
She had to check her boy because he
Exactly.
didn't
So
know
that
what,
was
what he was talking about. Yeah. So this guy is, yeah, like, so thanks for the recap of who this guy is. Sobredosis. I like this name. It's a great name. Never heard of
Yeah,
him.
well, that's the name of the song. Yeah, and that was a
Oh, I thought it
collaboration
was.
between Ozuna and Romeo
Oh, I
Santos.
thought it was the artist. Because right here, yeah. So they switched it up. They have the name of the song and then the artist, and
Yeah,
then
tropical song.
regional
Then
Mexican album. By the way, I have no idea who this guy is. Lenin Ramirez. Maybe I've heard the song, but again, I don't know. Pop Latin song, Me Niego, Osuna, and
and
yeah.
that's the
So
song that I was saying that does the collaboration that's between Ozuna, Rake, and Wisin, which is
yeah,
good. I like
I don't think Rake
one of my
is.
favorite songs.
I don't think Rake is considered rock or rock en español. I've always seen them more as pop, like
Pop.
Mexican
Okay.
pop. Yeah, like popular music. But it doesn't matter. I don't listen to them.
Odisea, there it is. By your boy
Osuna,
Ozuna.
and then Juan Luis Guerra, which yeah, Lifetime Achievement Award. That I know him.
No, he's good. I mean, he deserves it.
Cinco.
CNCO, it's called. But yeah, there's Cinco dudes. So it's kind of like the Menudo. They're trying to
Um,
promote him as the Menudo of our
like
time.
here's
Then
Bad
Bad
Bunny,
Bunny.
Nicky Jam, J Balvin. So yeah, so
That was
reggaeton is running away with all the awards here.
yeah. Go back to the song of the year, or the player of the year. No, the other one.
For
Sorry.
this one, airplay song.
Yeah, Airplay song. That was interesting to me because to me, I feel like Te Boté was a lot more popular than X by Nicky Jam
Hmm.
and and J Balvin. I mean, I love them both, but this song was good, but definitely Te Boté, I feel that was more of the song of last summer.
Do you think that this trend is gonna stick around, especially with the trap music, or do you think it's just a little phase right now, or you think that this is what we're gonna be with for the next 10, 20 years? This style.
Um, I think it's hard to tell, right? Because like I don't know if it weren't for reggaeton, I don't know what kind of music will be popular with us right now. And I think it seems like very unique because we as Latino, and I feel this is where the Latino market in the U.S. and the Latino experience in the U.S. is driving the market because it's music that for the most part a lot of people like, in part because it's sort of a melding of the hip hop culture but making it Latin,
Yeah,
right? So
that's what
it's
I was
kind of
gonna tell you. That I'm actually seeing a lot of elements here of Jamaican dance and
yeah,
then hip hop. So maybe it's not a question of if reggaeton is gonna stay like this. Maybe it's gonna be a question of what other mainstream music is going to come out of another country, which then reggaeton might incorporate into it. Because that's what I'm seeing here. None of this stuff is really seems unique to reggaeton. I there's reggaeton has its elements, but I'm seeing a lot of borrowed material here.
yeah. And
Mm.
but that's the thing. But I feel like, and then with Spanish trap and trap music in general, I feel like that's where both hip hop and reggaeton is going. So there seems to be this simultaneous evolution of music. So right when a new genre comes in English, it's adapted into Spanish, and obviously pretty soon because of the demographic, maybe it'll be the reggaeton or the Latin trend that comes first, and then that's what spreads out to the main culture. So it'll be interesting to see that how that continues to.
Yeah, that'd be something if reggaeton starts influencing something like hip hop, because the hip hop community is very creative. I know they use elements from other type of music, but for the most part, it's they're the ones that are always inventing, and then from them a lot of what comes out from the hip hop community. So it I think it'd be a first if you saw that. I don't think I've ever seen a case where hip hop actually borrowed or took from another one, and then that influenced what mainstream hip hop is. It seems like they're always the ones that are the forefront of innovating.
Well, they are, and I think that said, I think Latinos were also an important part of the evolution of hip hop, and I think some of that history gets lost at times because, for the most part, I mean, whether you're East Coast or West Coast, if you're in the East Coast, Puerto Ricans were part of the movement that came up with sort of hip hop, in terms of some of the DJs, some of the break beat boys, the dancers. So it was part of because there were African Americans and Puerto Ricans living together in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, all those areas.
Oh
And
yeah, I
same thing.
wasn't I wasn't suggesting that it's exclusively African Americans that are driving
Yeah.
it. It's just the hip hop community, which,
Yeah, and I
like
wasn't,
you said.
I wasn't implying that you were, but just I think for us also to always remember that because I think sometimes there's that assumption, right? That all that to say, because I feel that reggaeton is influencing hip hop. So you have Drake working with Bad Bunny. I know that Bad Bunny
Man,
also worked with
is
what's her name?
is Drake considered hip hop? Maybe.
Ooh, damn.
Is he? Because
I thought he
he's
was.
pop, isn't he? Yeah,
I thought he was, but
I suppose he's.
and it's
Yeah,
funny because around that time, around those topics, is there's also the whole debate around skin color, right? Like, is Drake not considered hip hop just because he's a lighter skin or because he's from Canada? And there's all these interesting things that debates that people like to have.
no, yeah, yeah. I was just. I know he is. Hip hop these days encompasses a lot of things, and maybe there's some stuff in there that probably shouldn't be there, like the mumble rappers. Maybe that should just be its own category. But right now, it is under the category of hip hop. I'm sure
Yeah.
you could classify Drake as a specific his style as a specific type, mainly because he's so versatile too, though, because he has a lot of range. So a lot of the songs that he does make do step away a little bit from just that just the hip hop sound. But then there's other songs where he's just straight out rapping, isn't it? Or
Yeah.
I don't listen to a lot of Drake. I only listen to a little bit of it. So what do I listen to, right? If I don't listen to any of this stuff,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
I'm, I'm a casual consumer of all these things. So I know of them, but I don't get immersed into these things the way that you do. So you know so much about these things, but I just know I have like a superficial knowledge of these things because I stay up to date with culture. So I know Drake, I know J Balvin, but beyond that, like I don't listen to entire albums of Drake or I don't know his songs. I just know one or two that for some reason shows up on my wall, if you want to call it that, or on my feed menu.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's why I do touch on a lot of these things, but I'm definitely not an expert. That's why it's good to have someone like you that can give me the scoop on these things.
Well, that's funny because I don't consider myself an expert. Like, there's definitely people who are like one level or two levels above me who, who listen to all of the albums and who are actually discovering. I think that discovering new artists. I think that's something that I'm trying to get more into because I feel like a lot of what I know about music, it's more like mainstream, right? So like I like artists that have been sort of presented to me versus being on SoundCloud or being on YouTube. And actually a lot of artists do come out of YouTube because they're able to record their songs and build their following and then eventually be able to make their careers. Like, so for instance, I think there's a new artist, African American, Lizzo, Lizzo. And basically, she's a big girl, so she's redefining, going back to the theme of women, right? So she has this, I think, this video that's called Juice. And I have a friend who, months ago, he sent me her video. And just the other day, she was on Trevor Noah, right? So for me, a lot of what I consider becomes mainstream comes out of the Daily Show, right? Once it kind of makes it into one of those shows, you start seeing the artists, you start seeing them do more of their thing. But it's interesting too that I, as much as I like to think that I'm an expert, I know that I'm still learning so much and that there's so much music out there.
No, and I think when I say that I don't listen to anything, it's just that's not entirely true. I think that I'm listening to a different type of music these days. Maybe when I was younger, I was consuming some of these things, some of this type of music more. But let me see. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. But let me share the screen again because I stopped sharing. So I listen to KCRW here in LA. It's Morning Becomes Eclectic. So I do have a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of knowledge about a lot of indie rock or even music that is not getting airplay, but it's actually really good music. And so I gravitate more towards that station because it plays music. I wouldn't say that it has like a deep message. Some of it does do it, but does do have a deep message. Does have a deep message, but for the most part, it's just music that I enjoy. I enjoy the melodies. I enjoy the composition, and it's music that you would. See, I don't want to sound like this. This might come across as arrogant, but it's music that I consider good music.
Yeah, and that you wouldn't
versus,
hear
yeah, you
on a
don't really
radio
hear a lot of
station.
the good music on the radio. You hear what's popular, but what's popular is not necessarily what could be considered good. So one of the artists that I came across just listening to that station, it was this guy right here. I think his name is Masego, and I just came across him a few weeks ago. This song is amazing and 129 million views, so it is quite popular. But you're not really hearing of this guy on the radio, at least maybe because I don't
Not
listen
yet.
to mainstream radio. Have you heard of this guy?
No.
You watch.
Well, play it. Let me see if I recognize
And the guy's using a passport.
That's funny. It's amazing how much sound two people can make nowadays with all the instruments and technology.
Yeah, and they're amazing. Right here, this part where the sax kicked in, this is the part
Mm.
where I had to stop. The intro is already pretty catchy, but when I was listening to the song, I just had the headphones on. But when the sax kicked in, that was the part when I said like, "Oh, okay, I gotta figure out who this guy is."
Yeah, and I think to your question earlier about like where do I see reggaeton going to, I think that's because I feel in some ways this artist is a response to the popular electronic generic music that's out there. So I feel like, I mean, when you talk about sax, when you talk about adding instruments and the guitar, the bass, all that stuff, I feel like I think there's a natural yearning for good music, right? So even if it's not like the type of music that people are gonna dance to, that's the music that you can just chill to and have a conversation to or just enjoy, right? So I think um, that that will continue to be the case. You have the dancing popular music, but then you're gonna have artists like this one, and others, so many others who try to stick to the essence of instruments, of message, of melody, of all of these things, which is pretty
Yeah,
good to see.
yeah, definitely. Good is what's considered good is very subjective, but as you said, yeah, there's a certain type of music that has a certain tempo, certain melodies that you could insert them in different situations, and people would just, I don't know if they would necessarily, it would add to their experience. So let's say you're hanging out with friends and then this type of music's playing in the background. It enhances your experience because somehow you're listening to it, you're interacting, and something about the music makes you feel a certain way. And you don't have that with all types of music because you can't just be in a cool mellow environment and then throw in there like a really upbeat song like Gasolina from Daddy Yankee, because that's going to get you into a different state of mind.
Yeah,
So when people say, "Oh, I don't like that music, it's not good," maybe what they mean is that that type of music, I don't like listening to it because that's not the mindset that I want to be in most of the time. This other music is more conducive to being in a relaxed state and in a state of like meditative or whatever state people want to be in. If the music doesn't reflect that state that they want to be in, then they might just say that's not good music and I don't like it. But it could be good music. It could be good music for somebody else that wants
yeah,
to be in that mood.
yeah. And it's funny because I definitely want to listen more to When Morning Becomes Eclectic. I heard of that song. Like the way I usually listen to new music, mostly Latino too. It's alt Latino on NPR because I definitely like a lot of the artists, a lot of the shows that they have, and I feel like and for me, it's sometimes it's like because my initial reaction is like, "Ooh, that sounds different. I don't know if I like this," but I think part of it is like just kind of being exposed to it and appreciating and broadening my own musical taste, and also understanding that music is not just for dancing or having a good time, that it's also about the artistry of it too, right? For to appreciate that, and also, like you said, to music that helps you just enjoy the moment. And it's funny because a lot of that music then becomes music that is put into shows, into commercials, and things that where music sets the tone to what is being communicated.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you mentioned wanting to listen to the Morning Becomes Eclectic show. It's from 9 till noon every single day. They play for 3 hours, and if you go to kcrw.com, you can listen to it. They actually have streaming 24/7. They call it Eclectic 24. And maybe
Mm.
at a later time we can do a podcast where I can show you some of the songs that I've discovered as a result of that show, because a lot of them are Spanish songs that come out
Hmm.
of either Brazil or Colombia. There's a few Colombian artists. There's one from here from Tijuana also, and then even an artist from France that I discovered. What's his name? His name. I'm skipping his name. Um, Here, I'll give you his name just briefly, just to. He has a song that I really like. Yeah, Stromae.
No, yeah.
So the French artist that I discovered also, and he has great music. I don't understand what he's saying, but it's really good music that I like listening to it. So anyhow, I think we've gone on at length about this and about the show. I think it was a good conversation. Thanks for filling me in and keeping me a little hip with today's young generation. I feel
You're welcome,
like
Grandpa.
yeah, every single year I drift further and further away from this stuff.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for the conversation. I think it's always good to you know to have this type of dialogue, just to pause and think about the music that we listen and what's out there and all those things. Because I think sometimes we, music becomes almost in the background, but like I also feel that it can add so much meaning to our lives, and defines and can define moments. It can define um, things that are happening in our lives and things like that. But I definitely enjoyed the conversation as well. So thank you for sharing this with me.
Hey, thanks, and I'm still waiting for the day when I go to the Mariscos here in LA and there's a live reggaeton band playing for me.
I know we're gonna have to maybe because that's probably my side hustle. Maybe I'll become a promoter and see,
Yeah.
because there's either that, like bringing reggaeton music, but also I feel like I don't understand how in LA there's no 24-hour tropical music station. Like how, and I know they play salsa and other, but I feel like there's no one station where they play salsa, merengue, cumbia, vallenato. So if I win the Powerball, I think that's gonna be my first investment.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like a good idea. All right, man. Good talking to you.
All right, likewise.
Bye.